The Macabre World podcast is brought to you by Darker Art Studio, home of real human bone jewelry. Stock and custom pieces are available, so visit us on the web at www.darkerartstudio.com and show them your darker art side. Macabre World, a podcast from Darker Art Studio, where we explore the dark, strange, and unusual from this world and beyond. Hello and welcome to the Macabre World podcast. I'm your host, Rocky Digati, and with me today from TV's Paranormal Caught on Camera, you may have also seen him at The Curse of Oak Island, Drilling Down, the Haunted Collector series, and author of Grains of Sand, Tales of a Paranormal Life. Please welcome Mr. Brian Cano. Thank you, Brian.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's great to have you here. So this paranormal thing has really blown up.
Yeah, the paranormal thing, yeah, it's been a couple of years it's been going.
Yeah, it seems like folks are into it. Well, 20 years ago, you've been investigating for at least that.
This is 22 years officially.
And you look 30, so I don't know how that works.
I appreciate that. I just turned 50, so I will take it.
No way.
I did, yes. Yeah, a lot of people do new math and they're like, yeah, we've been investigating for 5 decades. And meanwhile, they're 55. It's like, oh, you started when you were 5 years old. Yeah.
Can we count the Ouija board incident where the Ouija board said Rocky stinks and my sister was...
I was interested in the paranormal when I was younger, but
oh, sure.
I can't say I started investigating officially until, much later. So officially on the records, I've been doing this for 22 years.
And 22 years ago wasn't cool. We were a bunch of geeks.
Well, it's not that it wasn't cool. It was still the occult. Now you get ghosts and people are like, and they want to talk to you. They want to share their experiences. It's a lot more open now. I mean, we just got another Ghostbusters movie. So it's back. We're back, baby. And
how was the concert?
Back then, I'm sorry?
How was the concert at the Ghostbusters movie?
The concert of the Ghostbusters movie, they moved us. Well, that was...
Tell folks, you were in the Ghostbusters movie.
That was 2016. I'm talking about the new...
Oh, the new... I thought you meant Ghostbusters.
There's been 2 movies since that came out.
Oh, my goodness. I'm way back. That's it.
Yeah, we're down later. Back in time. But that, when I first started, when people would ask, oh, what are you doing this weekend? Or I had a cable access show called Scared on Staten Island. People would say, oh, what's your show about? It was kind of hard to tell them what it was about because it's about a lot of things. A little bit of urban exploration, a little bit of paranormal investigation. There was no ghost hunters. There was no ghost adventures. There was nothing to point to and say, hey, we're like that. The closest thing I could point to was, we're kind of like the Blair Witch Project, but we're trying to document. We're trying to see what we find. And things have changed. I look back on some of our old episodes. I look back on some of my old adventures, and there's been an evolution.
There really has.
I am today, 2024 Brian and 2002 Brian. I don't know if we would get along.
How so?
2002 Brian was very much a diehard skeptic. And maybe a little inflexible, unwavering. I had made up my mind and I was determined to stay in that headspace, but I was still fascinated by the topic, so I kept exploring it. And in doing so, I read, I researched, I got mentored, I went to events, I talked to people, all these things. And the most common question people ask me are, oh, Brian, what changed you from skeptic to believer? And all those things were like grains of sand. You give me a grain of sand, I look at it, I'm like, this is supposed to convince me? I don't know, this doesn't look like much. And I would drop it at my feet. Grain of sand, grain after grain after grain dropped at my feet. Years passed, I looked down, and metaphorically speaking, I'm standing on a beach made up of all those experiences. And I had to consider what that meant. So I never just switched over. It was a gradual thing, and these days I consider myself to be a skeptical believer. I know the phenomenon exists. It's the people who report it that I'm skeptical of.
Oh, that's a very good point because I mean, source information can be with the advent of the internet. Everybody's got a camera. We've all got them in our phones now. Thank God that didn't happen when I was a kid.
Right?
Yeah, no, I'm so glad. There's so much stuff that I don't have pictures of. But everyone has a camera, so we automatically have cameras. We have video cameras, sound recording devices, and that's just in our everyday phone. And you can get apps, which I don't know the veracity of the scientific portion of it, but I mean there are apps that purport to be EMF meters. I have seen the app that is an infrared FLIR. A good friend of mine who's been on the show, she's Jasmine, and as has one of those, and we've seen, that I always thought that I used them actually to check my drafts in my windows, but in an old house. But but there's a lot of power to the cell phone now, where anybody, and I'm saying this with air quotes, don't write me letters, people.
Yeah.
Anybody can be an investigator because the basic tools. I mean, there's amazing amounts of equipment. There are, a lot of the crews that you see on TV. There's I don't know what even the connects thing where you can see the dots in the grid. There's all these EMF meters, there's REM pods, there's et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And when I was reading your book, one of the things I thought was really, really both moving, and I'm very sorry you lost your friend and mentor, and really, really accurate was that, and I think I'm gonna get this quote right, but I'm gonna try. The
Hmm.
best investigation instrument is the human body.
Rosemary often said that anecdotal evidence is still evidence. And yeah, I mean, we have to caveat emptor, let the buyer beware. I'm skeptical of the people who are reporting it because someone could go to a horror movie, get all in a crazy mindset, go home, hear the wind blowing, hear something move, and they go, "Oh, my house is haunted. My cat is possessed or something." And we receive these reports. We have to see what we can get from them. But there's a lot of preamble. There's a lot of preparation that goes into an investigation before one ever gets to a location, before a single camera is deployed or a meter turned on. There's interviews, there's a little bit of history, there's consultation, and it takes a lot of vocations. I mean, people who do jobs in their normal lives, who are EMTs, social workers, teachers, nurses, all of these skills are valuable. And everything that we bring from our personal lives into this is definitely helpful. But before we jump and say, "Oh, we're here to help," well, we have to find out the first rule. And this is the first consideration of parapsychology. Is it authentic? And until that's answered, and if the answer is no, it doesn't go any further. But if it does, all right, we go to the second consideration. How does it work? And that's kind of where most of us are right now. How does it work? What's going on? Why is this happening? And what are the rules?
I mean, it's a big field of on the unknown. And I think the more we know, like you're kind of making that point too, where the more technology we have, sometimes the less veracity the information has because it's become a massive influx of gadgets and things. And like you said, the source really needs to be a sound for it to be an integral piece of evidence.
Gathering more data is not a bad thing. I mean, technology has allowed us to get more information, but the analysis of that data is where, again, it's plugged through human perspective. So I call this the water in the glass principle. The famous question, is the glass half full or half empty? Optimists will say it's half full. Pessimists will say it's half empty. Alcoholics will say, well, I could just put vodka in it and it's fine.
I was just gonna say you need more wine. That's what it
This,
is.
you know what category you're in, but that's great.
Absolutely.
Self-actualization. But the fact that there can be so many answers, well, we're not looking for perspective. We're not looking for opinions. When we're doing this, we're looking for truth. We're looking for something that's actual. And the only thing that we could all agree upon, given that question, is there's liquid in the glass. There's something in the container. That's it. So when you're at said supposed haunted house and you hear a noise, someone might say, "Oh, that was just the wind." Someone else will say, "It's a demon." The only thing we can all agree upon is we heard a sound. That is it. That's the authenticity of the situation. What comes after that? All right, that's what we're in the trenches trying to figure out. But I think getting more data is not a bad thing. Let's collect all the data we can, but we have to analyze it properly.
It sounds like it's a lot more scientific method than seance.
It should be. Well, I mean, it takes both halves. During those years where I was still very skeptical before I came to where I am now, I was very science minded. And I was of the attitude that, well, if it can't be proven, then it doesn't exist. And that too is faulty logic. You need both the spiritual and the scientific. You need logic and emotion because we're human beings. We're amalgams of all of it. So if it's just us going through a human experience in this material world, we can't just look at one facet of it and expect it to deliver us the main answer, to answer those big questions. Because if you're to look at this scientifically, all right, how many ones and zeros do I have to arrange to make me? 1110 equals Brian J. Cano. And how many of those ones and zeros do I have to change to make you, Rocky? And how do we explain opinion and emotions and love and all these other things that are very much real, but you can't empirically create these in a lab? And that's where I think the academic community and the paranormal enthusiasts have a disconnect. And I think there needs to be a bridge in the middle for us to come and say, all right, we have to mix a little. There needs to be a
You think that
collaboration.
bridge is connected to the Albert Einstein, maybe? Not being
I
funny.
don't, I don't know. Um, I don't.
Energy can be neither be created nor destroyed. Not that I'm a physicist. I'm
That's the
not.
first law of thermodynamics.
Right.
I mean, that many of us use to support the survival hypothesis that, oh well, it has to go on, something must survive, and sure, maybe it does. um I'm one of those people who feels like, yeah, well, why not? Why couldn't we? Can't explain why Ernest was so popular in the 80s. I can't explain why people listen to certain music. I can't explain why we're all going nuts right now in politics, but
Right.
that's us. That's who we are. Explain that in a lab.
Right. Yeah, there's this definite like you said, this non-linear element. But I just think time isn't linear. I mean, Einstein basically proved it that that time is fluid. So I'm wondering how many of the spiritual portions of this, or the I should say the portions of this that people lean on the spiritual to explain or associate with to validate rather their faith, um, are really just like explanations trying to before anybody knew what thermodynamics or astrophysics were. And then now that we've got this little bit more of knowledge that's come over in the century since. I mean, is do you think there's a chance that the paranormal field could have as much a root in the Einstein world as it could in the spiritual world?
Well, I think the more we know and the more we understand, the closer we come to getting to said truth. I don't know if we'll necessarily get all the way there
Yeah.
because again, we are limited by this meat suit we're in and our brains can only conceive of so much.
Meat
Uh,
suit's gonna stick with me for a minute.
it's true. And you
It's
hear it in
forever.
all the pop culture movies and TV shows. Anytime someone encounters an angel or God, they need the Metatron because you can't hear the awesome power of God's true voice. It'll destroy you.
I
And
love
in
that
some
movie.
ways, I think there's some truth to that, and that yes, the answers are out there, but we can't perceive it. We're three-dimensional beings. So if there's five, six, seven, eight more dimensions, we can conceive of it. We wouldn't be able to witness it, observe it, or understand it in a way other than just theoretical. And John Keel wrote about this in the Mothman Prophecies, and he said, well, from the beginning of our history, when we're living in caves, yeah, this whatever it is, this phenomena has been here. maybe it's not extraterrestrial, maybe it's ultra terrestrial, maybe it's been here and then we got here, it's been watching us, it presents itself to us. Our ancestors saw them as gods. Now we see them maybe as aliens. We see it as unknown phenomena that we're trying to combat our cognitive dissonance, and that, oh, we cannot go to bed with a question mark. We need to have something. The one guy on TV, it's got to be aliens. Friends of mine are like, oh, it's Bigfoot. People in my area, it's ghosts and spirits, or demons, or jinn. There's so many different classifications, and we might all just be describing the same thing. So
Right.
I think you bring in Einstein, and before him, there's Newton. There's a Newtonian physics. They're very different. There may be someone that comes along that topples Einstein that says, "Oh, well, he came close, but here, this finishes out what he was trying to get to, and then our whole worldview will change." I mean, speaking of change, there's still some yahoos out there who think, "Hey, the Earth is flat." I I can't shun them for trying to believe something alternative, because I'll give them their day to, all right, explain it, because we used to believe the Earth was flat, and then the people who believed it was round were crazy. But now there are those again who are like, oh no, it's flat, and the firmament and God. It's I don't know if it takes a village, but it takes something.
Well, it takes the village idiot, apparently, if they think the world is flat. But they've obviously never looked out the window of the plane, ever. And you know what? You can write me letters on this, people. You didn't look out the window of the plane. You look out the window of the plane, you can see that anyway. But you're right. But it does take all kinds, and the plethora of opinions and information are in there. You're actually a very prolific investigator, and not only for the amount of time that you've done it, you've been doing it at all kinds of places, and you have a history of the paranormal exhibit that I'd
Yes.
love to hear a little bit more about. I believe you said the next stop is Shepherdstown, West Virginia, July 19 through 21. West Virginia, by the way, beautiful, beautiful, and I will say hauntingly beautiful state.
West Virginia taking it back to Mothman territory. Uh,
Gorgeous.
you know, this is definitely a passion project of mine. My History of the Paranormal mobile exhibit. It started out small. It started out in one room of a local convention, and it's grown, and I want to take it across the country. I want to take it to all 50 states. I've gotten through, I think, 11 of them so far. So I'm on my way. I'm 1/5 of the way through. So this next stop in Shepherdstown, which both on TV and in reality is a haunted town. I
I-
want people to come and visit it and discover that there's a paranormal world. There was people working in this before the TV shows. And sometimes in order to move forward, you have to look back. And this is the foundation of the paranormal. I want people to know some of the names, the places, the concepts that built this thing that we all love to explore. Names like Emanuel Swedenborg, Eleanor Sidgwick. I talk about the Fox sisters. And essentially, what the exhibit is, it takes you on a journey from the 1800s through the spiritualist movement on through today. We look at equipment. We look at old school tools. I've got a tarot card reader there who will do a reading for you. I've got a little game show at the end. It's interactive and
Oh, that's
immersive.
great.
So anytime I tell people it's educational, you see them tune out, but it's interactive because you learn when you're having fun.
Sure.
And I want this to be fun. And we've had fun doing it. We pair it with an investigation in the evening, and we're going to be doing this at Shepherd University.
All
So,
right.
yeah, I mean, if you're listening to this, check it out. Check out the website. Please come, bring all your friends, and we'll learn something new in
And
the
speaking
history
of
of the paranormal.
websites, don't let them know where to go.
The website is neverstopsearching.com. Just give a click to the History of the Paranormal tab, or look in my events calendar, and you will find the History of the Paranormal. I'm only doing one showing this year. I try to have 4 a year, one for every season, but this year I'm only doing one. So don't think, oh, I'll catch the next one, because this is it.
So if you gotta go, you gotta go. Absolutely go. And also you have extra content and other stuff that folks can get if they get onto your website. They can go one level further and go into patreon.com Brian J. Cano and get more content.
I've always really enjoyed the community aspect of the paranormal. And I say community because I think there's an important distinction, especially now, where people call it the field. This is not a field. We are not in the field. I'm barely in the field, but we are part of a community who,
Very
we
much so.
love the paranormal. So my Patreon page is about building that community. I know a lot of people through my TV shows, Haunted Collector, or going way back to Scared, or even now for Paranormal Caught on Camera, want more content, want to interact, and this is a way for them to do so.
Excellent.
Additionally, in that, I have a special tier called the Apprentice tier, where I can train you in various topics, be it parapsychology, ghost hunting 101, ufology, something that I call paralosophy. It's designed to be like a custom college course for one. So you decide what your goals are. What do you want to learn? What do you want to get out of this? And then I construct a syllabus specifically for you.
Oh, very good. So you have tailor-made educational content. So definitely, again, the website is neverstopsearching.com. And to go into the next tier of the community and educational content, go to patreon.com/Brian J. Cano, one word. And let's talk a little bit. So when did you decide to write a book?
Oh
That's an
man,
undertaking.
this one was hard. I gotta say, I went to college and you
Oh, we
just
all thought we were smart in college. It gets
you just
weirder
spent
afterwards.
12 plus years in school, and then they expect you to do more. So and then when you get there, they're like, well, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? The lucky know or have an answer or follow in the footsteps of someone in their family. I didn't really know, but what I did know is that at the time I loved to read. I loved reading fantasy books, adventure, sci-fi, and I thought, oh, maybe I'll write. Maybe that's what I want to do. So I majored in English, I minored in psychology, and said, all right, let's do that. I'm going to be a writer. And then you get out of college, and unless you're John Grisham or Stephen King, no one is paying you to stay at home and write. So you got to get a job.
Yeah.
I was a technical recruiter for a time. I worked the midnight shift of a finishing department. I spent 11 years at an ad agency. I did a little bit of everything, but I never wrote. Well, I wrote what I
Ad
thought
copy.
clever posts on MySpace, or I would write the verbiage on the back of our DVDs. And I've always been a creative person, but that creative outlet always manifested in video, TV. We made a card game, a paranormal card game called The Three Pillars. It always came out some other way. And people were like, oh, when are you going to write a book? And Lord knows I wanted to, but I didn't know what it should be on. And should I write a how-to, how to investigate? Well, that seems pretty, big-headed of me. I don't want to tell you how to do this. Maybe I should write about an experience. I don't know about that. And I flip-flop for a long time. I I just didn't know what to write about. And eventually my manager said, yeah, Brian, you've got a lot of stories, and you're telling every, event you go to, you tell a story about something, someplace, just tell your stories. And it was so simple. It was brilliant. A light bulb went off. I said, oh, and I grabbed a stack of Post-its, and on each one I wrote, the story I would write about. I'm like, oh, I got to tell that Graham Midway story. Oh, I got to tell the Lizzie Borden story. Oh, I got to tell the story about the thing that happened here. And soon I had all these Post-its lined up, and just I sat down, and one by one I wrote the stories that I wrote on the Post-its, and grains of sand. And those grains of sand are directly connected to, like I said, when I was coming up and learning each experience at the time, I either didn't recognize it or wasn't ready to learn the lesson. But upon reflection and looking back, I said, oh, that was the lesson. All right. Good grain of sand.
And it also bears, and I'm not trying to gush, but I gotta say, your writing style is very much like your speaking style. So it's an easy read, it's a fun read. You're relatively witty, so it's an enjoyable read, and it's full of great humor. And if folks Again, you can go to Amazon. It's Grains of Sand, Tales of a Paranormal Life by Brian Cano. And if you want to find out how the sisters got him in Eastern State, you got to get the book. Uh, I loved that movie too.
Such a
That's
good one.
great. Yeah, it's a great local angle too, because where I'm coming at from New Jersey is not too far from Philly. It's not too far from
Mm.
Eastern State, which is an amazing place that people should definitely visit and support because it's really, really cool. So, we've talked about a lot of the technology. Now, you've got all, like I said, everybody's got a camera. And now that everybody's got a camera, we have so much submission video for shows like Paranormal Caught on Camera. And there are other types of similar shows, but for UFOs, different subjects, and in general. Have you seen any of what are some of the things you've seen, maybe in the guise of either being a commentator or in your own investigation, that you think are absolutely irrefutable?
Irrefutable. That's a good word.
Yeah.
I never, well, let's say I try to not dwell in the extremes. I never say this is completely fake or this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And on Paranormal Caught on Camera, there are people on there who's that's kind of their role. Uh Me, I don't know what my role on there is. I think I just deliver some sort of whimsical, whoa, what if, oh, it could be this, or what if that, or what was it? And the angle of the show, and this is where I think there's a little bit of a misconception about what the show is about. And I think paranormal TV in general, most of the shows out there are investigative shows. They feature a team, your favorite people in the paranormal, your personalities, and they go and they do. They have their adventures, and then they move on to the next. However, you're only seeing a very small fraction of that investigation. They're there for days. You're seeing maybe half an hour of it, 45 minutes at most. Um, you assume they have the foundation. They know why they're doing certain things, but ultimately it's up to the editors and the producers to craft something entertaining. TV is entertainment. That's the thing. Be entertained by it. I know there's a lot of people who get, and I used to get mad at the shows, especially in the early days. I would get mad. I'm like, oh, they didn't show this, or they didn't do their baseline sweep. And I would get angry until I realized, what am I getting angry about? This is just supposed to be entertaining. Um, None of them are documentaries. Not a single one out there. None of them are meant for educational purposes. They're there to sell ad dollars, and more power to them. That's what TV is. But Paranormal Caught on Camera is not an investigative show. It's about starting a conversation. Hey, look, we found this video. Let's talk about it. And on the show, you have the different commentators. We give our different takes on it, but it's the viewers. It's you guys who we want to throw the ball to and say, well, this is what we think. What do you think? And I'll get people writing me going, oh, that video last night, oh, it's so fake. How could you put it on there? And I'm like, well, first of all, I didn't put anything on there.
Right.
I just talked about it. And if you didn't see me, that means I had nothing good to say about it. And they didn't use my whimsical quote. But good. If you see something and you disbelieve it or feel, there's a better explanation for it, thank you. That's what we should be doing. We should ping pong back and forth and say, well, what do you think about this? Well, here I noticed this. Oh, that's a good point. Well, did you consider that? Oh, I didn't consider that. It's meant to start the conversation. And that's where the strength of the show lies. Again, with all the other shows, and I'm not casting any shade or talking speaking out of school about them, but when they present a piece of evidence, there's an unwritten contract that, okay, you, the audience, you have to believe them because these are the people, these are the personalities, and you love them, and
They're
this
the experts.
got to be real. Sure, whatever. On my show, tear it apart. Really analyze it, and it's things that come through. All right, if they're not authentic, then great. We just got to the bottom of that together, and that's the whole perfect example. I was mostly a ghost and spirits guy, but we have cryptid videos, we have UFO videos, and in order to say something intelligent about them, I had to dive deeper. I had to do more research in those areas, and that's great. That's made me a better researcher. But the show would air, And invariably, someone would come on Twitter the next day and say, "Oh, you guys are idiots. Oh, that UFO video that you were commenting on yesterday, that's the Starlink array, or that was a launch from SpaceX." And I'm like, "Wow, I'm sorry, I'm not omnipotent. I'm not everywhere at once."
Sure.
But
SpaceX.
beyond the jerky way they presented to me, all right, now I have that information. So now when I see videos and I see lights in a line, I'm like, oh, maybe that's SpaceX. Maybe those are the Starlink. Okay, I have more information now. I'm better for the conversation.
Right.
Don't be a jerk about it, but yeah, this is great. I have more information now, and hopefully we do the same for people. We give them more information.
There is like I said, there's a whole lot of information out there, and I've watched the show for a little while now, and every once in a while I will see a video that'll have me kind of like head scratching for the rest of the day. And I have one in particular that I just still think is kind of freaky. It's a very famous clip, and I discussed it with your buddy Dan on the show at one point too, of the little boy in the Philippines with the grandmother kind of
That's it.
leans in.
That's Dan's favorite clip. Yeah, we talk
That's
about
a
that a
great
lot.
clip.
I think mine also comes from the Philippines. It was the Aswang video where you're seeing a security cam, and off in the background there's bars. There's like a gate, and
Yes,
someone like he kind of like morphs through it. He melts through it, and
it
as he's
makes no
walking towards the
sense.
camera, it's almost as if he takes shape. He assumes human form, and my logical brain is saying, no, that can't be real. Come on. But
That's wild.
I played it again and again and again and again. And yeah, there are videos where and the producers love this because usually I'm the one who's like, all right, no, I don't like this. No, I think I can explain this. Nope, we can't show this. Um, I can be a little bit of a stick in the mud with that. But when we come onto our Zoom calls and they say, okay, let's talk about this video. And I say, oh, I love this one. They're like, oh, great, good, let's talk about it.
Finally.
The Osmond, that was one of them because, yeah, I mean, we could find a way to explain. Again, it comes back to that cognitive dissonance I was talking about. Yeah, we can find a way to explain it just to allow ourselves to sleep at night. But the one thing, the one overarching rule over every video we see from TV or the internet, I wasn't there.
True.
So there's a whole facet of information that I just don't have. And that's why it's important to talk to the people who either were there, who did capture it. Just like Rosemary said, you get that anecdotal experience and see if it adds to it. It might explain it, might disprove or debunk, or it might bring us further into the wow, that was amazing territory.
There is some stuff. Well, are you saying whatever makes you sleep at night? Those are the videos that freak me out the most. The levitating sleeping people. Like, how am I supposed to go to sleep after this? After I see somebody, there's that one of that poor young lady, and she is like all the way up in the air. And oh my God. Imagine
Please
waking
come
up in the
down.
middle of that. That does, yeah, right. That's just not cool. And but I think I think it's when you see sleeping people who are otherwise oblivious, either being pranked or prodded or levitated or getting the covers pulled off. I think that actually hits a special note of terror. Have you ever had a terrifying experience that you would feel terrifying? Or you were terrified, I should say.
When it comes to reacting, I and the producers on Haunted Collector just were always so frustrated with me because most people have a fight or flight response. I do neither. I freeze.
Oh dear.
I don't react because again, I'm thinking. Something happens. I'm trying to figure it out. I don't want to run away. I don't know if I necessarily want to run towards it just yet, but
Wise.
I'm evaluating,
It's a
and
lot
I'm
of
ready.
running away in some shows. I'm not calling
Um,
anybody out. There's a lot of fleeing going
they
on.
know who they are.
Yes, they do. We all know who they
and
are.
and millions of people watch their shows. They're the
They
top
all
rated
know who they
shows.
are.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
There's a lot of flight, not a lot of fight. I'm just saying.
and that's the thing. For me, I think that and that's the thing. When we would do our OTFs, which stands for on the fly, when something would happen, we'd get pulled aside, the producers would interview, and that's where those talking heads pop in on the usual shows. And they're like, oh, okay, something just happened. Brian, what, weren't you scared? And I'm thinking, I'm like, yeah, no, because I don't really know what I saw. I don't know if it's something to be scared, or if I am scared, I'm not going to run. I'm going to consider my options. But sure, I mean, it's the unknown can be scary. Things that we're not ready to confront can be scary. I had one experience, and I wrote about it in the book. I think it's chapter 7, Circle of Fire. This was my one and only experience throughout all these years I've been doing this that I ever encountered something that I feel comfortable saying was demonic. Now on TV, everything every week is a demon, but in reality, yeah, no, it's rare, and thankfully so. But I remember being freaked out, and I remember being depressed over it for 2 years because of the realization of this is real. The world is filling up with this, and how do we stop it? Yeah, investigators, you throw on a black t-shirt, it doesn't qualify you to fight the demonic. I'm just a man. And there's an epilogue to that story that really made me feel better in the respect that if there's evil, then there's good, and you have to choose a side. So I mean that the existential things terrify me. The big picture questions terrify me. Like thinking of the enormity of existence. Yeah, I mean, if I were exposed to those answers, like we were talking about before, yeah, my brain would explode. And
Right.
that would be it. It would melt out of my ears and nose, and that would be the end of my career.
And that's how it all ended. You know,
Yeah,
but I mean, I'm going to I think you grew up in New York City area?
yes.
Okay, so oh, that's right. I miss cable access, by the way. Cable access
Okay.
went the way to the dough. I think Roku is the closest we've got to cable access. But
Hmm.
cable access for anybody who's listening who wasn't around during its heyday, man, was that fun. Anybody could be on TV. You saw the coolest stuff. And that's where, like, we all saw the skits on Saturday Night Live for like Wayne's World and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And so cable access was at one time a great creative proving ground for a lot of the shows that would come later.
It's mandated by law. I mean, I don't know if it still is. I know it still exists in some form, but cable access, every city was supposed to have a channel that the public could come on for free to express ideas and do things. And a lot of it was usually just political discussions.
Sure.
But yeah, we used it to run around abandoned buildings at night. And people would watch our show and go, "You guys are crazy. I would never do that." But we enjoyed doing it. And
Oh, it is fun.
like I said before, there was nothing for us to compare ourselves to. So it was very much a frontier time. We were young, adventurous, a little bit stupid. But
Goes with the territory, I think, for all of us.
it got me to where I am today.
And that's fantastic. Again, folks, the name of the book is Grains of Sands, Tales of a Paranormal Life, and you can get that on Amazon. You can find out about the upcoming events, including the touring of the History of the Paranormal exhibit in Shepherdstown, West Virginia. That's a lot of haunt for one trip, though. That's great.
Right?
Just the locale alone. And you can find these events at neverstopsearching.com. And I gotta ask you, like, sort of like the kind of questions that I always kind of wind up and ask everybody in the sense of, do you have a bucket list investigation you have not done? And do you have a favorite investigation that you would do and do and do and do over and over again and do as much as you? What's your favorite greatest hit and your bucket list?
Oof. I am famously horrible with favorite questions because so many good choices. There's so many. Yeah, it depends on my mood. It depends on where I am, what I'm doing. But bucket lists, usually the one that I trot out is the White House.
Oh, really?
I
Okay.
I'd want to investigate that place. I mean, it's probably the most stressful job in the world. Everybody who goes in there comes out with gray hair
They
after
do. That's very true.
and everyone who's got to work for the president, work around the president, it's just stress, 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 stress. There's never a good day. There's never, hey, everything's great today. No, there's always problems. There's always people who are angry or some country that's trying to uh, aim missiles at us.
Right.
So
It's
yeah,
like
over the years, there's a lot of secrets in there and a
there
lot
is.
of uh, energy. And I can't imagine that it wouldn't leave a mark, that it wouldn't. have some sort of echo.
I think that's one of the more
So,
interesting answers I've gotten.
so
Because
something
usually it's something like, like for me, it's the Tower of London. How droll, but I would
okay,
love to do
that
the
would be
Tower of
cool.
London. it would be cool.
That
I
would be
mean,
cool.
yeah, and but I had that's very cool. The White House. That now is it, there are some. I think they tell you on the tour that there are some stories circulating about the White House and haunting.
Yeah, I mean, just think about all the mysteries that we know about. Yeah, the Lincoln assassination, JFK, the Watergate. We have all these scandals, and then what about the ones that we don't know about? What about the deals and the sicknesses and the back room negotiations and everything that just we are unaware of? It's a job, and that's the thing. I don't know why anyone would want that job.
Oh God, no.
It's a thankless job, and the minute you get it, half the country hates you, and I I wouldn't be able to handle that kind of pressure. But I would love to investigate it. And
That's a
as
lot. How about your favorite, the one you keep going back to? You don't get sick
I
of.
don't necessarily have a favorite because when it comes to the paranormal, even though it's on the surface about the dead, it's very much about the living. It's very much a community. It's about the people. People love to get together. Friday nights, Saturday nights, paranormal groups are putting on their shirts and making sure they've got enough snacks and coffee and oh they got to make sure they got their batteries charged. And it's fun because you get to see your friends and go on field trips and go explore places you've never been. And yeah, if you find some evidence, that's great too, but you're there with your friends. When you go to conventions, you meet new people. You meet the people that you've seen on TV, and it's exciting to talk to them. Um, and for me, places that I've been to multiple times, when I end up going back, perfect example was the Lizzie Borden house. I used to go there all the time, and people go, "Oh, you're going to investigate?" I'm like, "No, I'm going to visit my friend Leanne." You develop connections and friendships, and these
Right.
people should become an extended family. And when I would
That's right
go
where I'm
there,
from.
yeah, when I
I'm
would go
from
there,
right outside of Fall River.
I would stay the night. I wouldn't investigate. I wouldn't even bring any equipment. Usually it was a way station. I might be on my way somewhere else, but I
Right.
had to drop in to say hi, have a meal, just hang out. And when those places accept you, the hauntings don't bother you. Because you are now part of that fabric. You're part of that story. So the Shanley Hotel, Lizzie Borden House, Ohio State Reformatory.
Oh,
I,
sure.
I'm I'm there several times a year, and half the time I'm not investigating. I'm just looking around like, wow, Morgan Freeman was here. I'm like a kid in a candy store.
Right. But the Lizzie Borden house is always an interesting place to explore. And do you think she did it?
I don't have an opinion because I feel there's relevant evidence to support either verdict. So much so that several years ago, I think it was 2015 through 2017, I held three events there, one a year, called the retrial of Lizzie Borden. And we would put Lizzie back on trial. I would give attendees all the court documents, everything that was actually used in the case, and I would give them 2 hours. Am I right? You guys, you're the prosecution. Go. All right, you guys, you're the defense. Go make your case. And then we would hold a mock trial in the basement where I didn't think people would really get involved, but people got very invested in the outcome to the point where they're objecting and they're really getting involved in the case. And we had the tour guides at Lizzie's act as the characters. So we had our Lizzie, we had our Emma Borden, we had
Sure.
all the characters that could be called to the stand and cross-examined by both sides. And ultimately, all 3 years, Lizzie was acquitted because there wasn't enough evidence to convict. But I mean, if it was a crime of passion, yeah, I could see that happening. If it was a murder for hire, I could see that too. But I don't think Lizzie's there. I think something's there. I don't think it's Lizzie.
There's a lot of layers to that story, and there's a
Oh yeah.
lot of layers to the evidence, and then there's, so much more to go on, and it's one of those that's several shows unto itself. But I'm so thrilled that you said that. That's a little hometown pride. I'm from right around the corner from Fall River. I'm from Bristol, Rhode Island,
Nice.
and yeah, and that's just it's very cool. So once again, folks, go to neverstopsearching.com and be sure to catch the History of the Paranormal exhibit when it gets into Shepherdstown, West Virginia, and make a weekend of it because there's lots going on there. That's going to be July 19th through the 21st. You've got seasonal events that people can read about on your website. They can go on to Patreon and get a little bit more content and become part of the community and get some education as well. And to do all of that. So I really appreciate you stopping by and talking with us. And what's the next big thing besides the exhibit? What are we going to be watching out for?
Oh, well, right now we are in the midst of filming season 7 of Paranormal Caught on Camera. So you're going to be getting more videos, more commentary, some new commentators this season. And again, it keeps that conversation going. As for other events, I will be at Mass Paracon this year. I'll be at Michigan Paracon. Those are two of the big ones. Uh, Obviously doing my History of the Paranormal exhibit, and wherever else I pop up, you never know. I just like to keep the adventure rolling.
All right. Well, that sounds like a good deal to me. Well, folks, get out there and get involved in your community, support the paranormal community, get out and take a look at some of these events and get out and be a part of it because we all want you to be in on this. Because when we all figure it out, like you said, our heads are going to explode. We need more people in on this.
Exactly.
And thank you so much, Brian, and I wish you well. And to all you folks, thanks for listening. And remember, stay kooky out there. Thank you for listening to Macabre World. You can find us on the web at www.darkerartsstudio.com.